I like to give a lot of frameworks, 3 frameworks in this course, but in order to talk about myself, I'm also going to give you a framework. I once read a book by a philosopher called Osho, O-S-H-O. And in this book, I never actually read the book. I just read the foreword. It really was unbelievable. It's just so enriching. And it talked about the history of Zen and the fact that Zen had 3 stages. It's India stage, it's China stage, and it's Japan stage. And it had to do with the intrinsic nature of each of those cultures. India stage, it was a very introspective, very nurturing, and it was basically where the seed of Zen was formed. A lot of the nutrients, the DNA, the strength, so that was the India stage. But Zen didn't grow in India. It was until certain monks took those seeds and transplanted them into China, and then it got mixed with Confucianism. The tree started growing, and it grew and it grew and it grew. India was the seed, the nurturing stage. China was the growth stage. And finally, until some monks transplanted it and transported it to Japan, and it got mixed with the culture there and the martial arts and the form, that's where Zen acquired its final touch. So it's the mixture of those 3 cultures and those 3 races, and of those 3 peoples. The addition of everything that is beautiful and smart, great and peaceful, spiritual and positive about India, China and Japan. Then Osho turns around and basically says, just like humans. And he basically says that humans also have an India stage, a China stage, and a Japan stage. And I found that very interesting. And he challenged the reader to think about it and call out each of your own stages. And so to be able to think about it and introspect and identify those stages within your own life. So I did. So for me, Mexico, I was born in Lebanon, but I really grew up in Mexico. So Mexico was my India stage. It was nurturing. I had my mother, my grandmother, my family. It was a big family. There was a lot of family reunions. We got together. That was the nurturing stage. I studied in the French system, did like a math, physics, high school, and eventually went to study industrial and systems engineering. But then I left. After college, I decided to take my stuff, pack and leave. And I just took a suit so I could work as a temp. And I took my tuxedo from graduation so I could work as a waiter. And I took my guitar with me and $900. And I moved to the US and I started looking for a job. And it was very difficult at first because companies thought I was Mexican, and I had to end up putting US citizen on my resume because they couldn't understand why somebody that had studied in Mexico was a US citizen. Like everything else, it was a long journey. It was 8 months of job search. And I finally, and after 40 rejection letters, I got 5 offers. Eventually I got a job working at Accenture, worked as an SAP consultant, doing change management and process work for many years. Back then it was the Y2K wave of projects, so companies were paying through the roof to basically be able to implement SAP before the millennium bug hit, because a lot of these old systems were coded in COBOL and they only had a 2-digit date field. So that was a crazy time for those of you that probably remember consulting. And it was a great time because we were paid extra. We were paid 25% extra for the same type of work just because all these large consulting companies were stealing consultants from each other. And I traveled the world and it was great. I lived in Germany, I lived in Brazil. I worked in projects all over the world, had contacts with amazing people, and they trained me in a way that I will always be grateful because they gave me a great foundation. Obviously, the transplanting myself from Mexico to the US, that really created conditions for the US to become my China in this story. The tree grew and grew, and yes, I grew professionally. I worked at Accenture, then I did a Wharton MBA, a dual degree with a Master's in International Studies from the Lauder Institute of the University of Pennsylvania. I moved into media, where I ended up working 20 years. So it was a great experience. I ended up working pretty much all the positions possible in media. I started in a management rotational program that reported to the CEO. Then I went to sales, and I worked as an account executive at KMEX in LA, their Univision flagship. Then I moved to national sales manager in Austin. Then we did well, and I got picked up by the network, and they brought me to Miami to become the director of branded entertainment. And then I became the VP of branded entertainment. And from there, I was working with all the content producers. I was working in programming. I was the interface between programming and sales. And eventually I got a shot at programming network myself. So I became the VP of programming for Galavision, and then for the entire entertainment cable group. And it was a very exciting time, and we did some great things. I'm always going to treasure my time at Galavision, and we grew the ratings, and it was such a challenging time because of certain characteristics of the industry. Then the things that we had to do to overcome really kind of taught me so many things. And at the time we used the variation of Moneyball. If you saw the movie Moneyball with Brad Pitt, and so we used the Moneyball variation adapted to media. That's a little bit what was behind the success of Galavision and the work of a great team. After 3 years of success, they promoted me to VP of analytics for all the networks in Univision, and they basically wanted me to replicate that same approach to all the other networks, including the flagship. That job lasted less than a year because our chief content officer for Univision was the same chief content officer for Televisa, and they transferred me to Mexico so that I could work in the mothership, managing the analytics and the audience intelligence and the insights for 18 networks with a team of close to 30 data scientists and a very large qualitative research budget. It was a fantastic experience. This is public information, but the pipeline for Televisa is hundreds of millions of dollars, and to be able to provide the audience intelligence and audience insights for that pipeline, it was a tremendous honor and a great time, great professional experience for me. So all good things come to an end. This chief content officer changed and everybody in his team got let go. And for the first time in almost 20 years, I was without a job. And that was a very new feeling.